In the name of God, amen. Please be seated. One of my favorite ways to use Facebook is the feature where they take you back to experience the memories of things you've posted in the past. For example, some of my favorite memories are the old pictures that come up of our dogs. Just the other day, I saw the picture that I took on the first day that I met Rufus, when he was just a baby. It always makes me smile. In recent weeks, though, I've been taken back on a pilgrimage through memory to the time nearly a decade ago when I was traveling in Kenya. I'd been there initially for a conference on the Bible and sexuality, and trying to build relationships between Anglicans in Africa and leaders of the Episcopal Church in the United States. But after the conference was over, a group of us traveled several hours southwest from Nairobi to go on a 6-day safari through the Masai Mara Triangle, one of the most thrilling and active nature preserves in the savannas of Central Africa. A member of our traveling group had researched possibilities for this safari ahead of our trip and suggested that we book our arrangements through a website called responsibletravel.com. Responsible Travel works to find and support non-exploitative travel options so travelers can avoid doing more harm, particularly in regions often exploited by outsiders. The particular arrangements of our trip had us spending 3 days in mud huts in a manyatta, a small enclosed village. Then 3 days in a camp that was set up by this village for their visiting tourists, where we'd have more of the Western comforts that we would typically expect. During those 6 days at both the manyatta and at the camp, we had lots of opportunities to interact with the villagers. We set up at night around fires, listening to singing and learning local traditional dances, hearing stories. When we got back to where we were staying each day, we laughed with children, exchanged stories about the differences between our lives, talked with the women as they worked and made crafts to sell to the tourists. We spent some of our days on driving tours of the nature preserve and some of our days on walking tours. During one of the walking tours, we looked up to the top of a high hilltop and noticed a few distinctly Western-styled buildings with steep metal roofs and late-model cars and electricity. These structures, though familiar to those of us traveling, seemed oddly out of place. So we asked one of the young men walking with us what they were. Why were these buildings there? And he answered very matter-of-factly, "Oh, that's where the missionaries live." Something about that made me feel uneasy. Now, before I go too far down this road, let me be clear. I don't tell this story with any intention of being judgmental. The fact is, missionaries serving months or even years on end in faraway lands probably do need some of the comforts of home. Like everyone in every line of work, they need to be able to leave some of the work behind at the end of the day, to recharge and to refresh themselves. And the fact is, I've never lived that life, so I can't sit in judgment too much. Traveling halfway around the world for extended service with people of an entirely different culture. I like to think that I could do it, but the truth is, I don't know that I could. I don't know what it would require of me. But at that moment, when I was seeing what amounted to mansions on a hilltop, as compared to the mud huts and tents where my traveling companions and I were staying, it left me feeling uneasy. It reminded me of how grateful I was to be staying where I was, meeting the people I was meeting and learning about their lives in a very first-hand way. Our group could have decided to stay in one of the traditional hotels in the area with private rooms and soft, luxurious beds and climate control and maid service. We still would have seen all of the animals that we went there to see, and we even could have popped in to visit one of the villages, one of the manadas, to see how the local people lived. It still would have been a truly amazing experience. It would have been eye-opening. But I was grateful that I got to spend a few days really getting to know the people where they were. I was grateful to have those chances to have real, substantive conversations with them about their lives and their experiences, and expectations were different, how our expectations were different, and how they were the same. Those kinds of relationships need time to build. They wouldn't have happened in a passing visit over the course of an afternoon. I was thinking about all of this week as I was hearing Jesus speaking about places of honor at the banquet. The thing is, I think it's important that we go out of our way to avoid claiming these places of honor, because we too often misunderstand what places of honor actually are. Places of honor, at least in the economy of Christ, aren't always where we'd expect to find them. If you listen to all that Jesus teaches, real honor isn't with the wealthy and the powerful. Real honor isn't found in the comfort of the familiar. It's not always at the head of the table. Real honor instead is found with the poor, the vulnerable, the needy. Real honor is encountered when we broaden the scope of our horizons, seek and to understand those people we wouldn't otherwise see or know. We don't have to travel halfway around the world to find those places of honor. Sometimes surrounding ourselves with so much that is unfamiliar can help us to open our eyes to truths that often hide in plain sight at home. But with discipline and openness, we can find that same kind of truth in our everyday lives. Like the difference between forgetting that the clouds are up there and taking the time to notice the image of an elephant floating above you. There are miracles and places of honor and encounters with Christ all around us, every day. If we stop fighting to get ahead and open ourselves to the wonder that is right here, we're more likely to find them. Christ is right here and with us. Just as much, Christ is always right there with them, whoever they are. With Christ is always the place of honor to which we should aspire. Amen.